Hey, I'm Pat. Welcome to Bible U. Today we're going to talk about what is the church, part one. Do you know what one of the most misunderstood words in the entire Bible is? It's the word church. In fact, I would suggest the word church, the English word church, is a very poor translation of what was really meant. Let me explain. I want you to go back 2,000 years with me in your imagination. And I want you to picture this scene of 13 men walking up this dusty road. The story is found in Matthew chapter 16. And so maybe close your eyes if you need to, but picture this 13 men. It's dusty. The road is on a steep incline. They're a little weary because they've been walking for some time. It's this man named Yeshua, Jesus, and his 12 disciples. And they're headed up to a region that few Jews would ever venture to. Why would Jesus take these 12 men here and to ask the question that he's going to ask? By this time, Jesus has spent about 2 years with these men, his disciples. They've been living life together. They've watched him perform miracles. They've heard him speak with power and authority. They've walked with him. They've talked with him. They've questioned him. The crowds were often so big now that Jesus and his followers can't even get into towns. And while the crowds continue to flock to Jesus, the tide has begun to shift, in that now many of the religious leaders are plotting Jesus' death. It's beginning to get a little dangerous to call yourself a follower of Jesus. So Jesus takes his disciples and they head about 20 miles north of the Sea of Galilee to a beautiful location called Caesarea Philippi. It's about 1,100 feet above sea level at the foot of the beautiful 9,000-foot Mount Hermon. On the side of this mountain, there was this cave where Philip, the local governing official, had built a temple to Caesar and to the pagan god Pan. In the crevices of the rocks, there were many statues of various idols. Historians actually tell us that there were 14 separate temples to the god Baal in this region alone. You'll see on the screen a picture, and as you look closely at the picture, you're going to see this massive cave. Remember that cave. Embed it in your mind right now. There's this massive cave. You can see all these crevices in the rocks, and this would be the place that there would be all kinds of idols. Interestingly, the conversation Jesus is about to have with his disciples is near this cave in this mountain that many at that time believed was the place Baal actually entered Hades. It was often referred to as remember this phrase, the gates of Hades. It's here at this pagan idolatrous place that Jesus takes his disciples to ask them the most important question they will ever be asked, and where he will first use the word or words that we translated church. It's the first time it'll be used by Jesus. Look with me at verse 15. It's Jesus' little pop quiz here. So in verse 13 it says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Well, they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. Then he asked them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, you are Hamashiach, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, oh, you are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you, meaning it didn't come from you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now, Jesus goes on and makes a statement that, I hope once we understand will radically alter the way you and I define the idea of church. When you and I understand what Jesus is about to say, it should motivate and encourage and challenge us to what we've been called to as Jesus followers. Look at verse 18. Jesus goes on as he's talking to Peter and says, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock, remember where he's at, and upon this rock I will build my, first time the word is ever used, church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it, or the gates of Hades will not overcome it. Now, there's a couple things that you and I must understand to grasp the enormity of Jesus' statement. First of all, Jesus did not say, I will build my church. Jesus did not say, I will build my church. I know some of you are looking at your Bibles and you're seeing those exact words. But let me say it again. Jesus did not say, "and I will build my church." And yet you're looking and it says, "and on this rock I will build my church." Allow me to explain before you call me a heretic and click out of this. Remember, the verses we're looking at were originally written in a different language, in Greek. If we were to look at Jesus' literal words, it would read, "I will build my ekklesia." It's actually two Greek words put together. One word meaning out of, and the other word meaning a calling. So ekklesia means to be called out. In Greek literature and in the Septuagint, which was the Greek translation of the Old Testament, this was a common word. And it was often used for an assembly or a gathering of people. If you had a gathering of people that were going to meet, you would say, there's this ekklesia meeting. So what Jesus is really saying, "and on this rock I will build my gathering of those who have been called out." This word ekklesia is actually used 115 times in the New Testament. The very first time being right here in Matthew 16:18. And out of the 115 times the word ekklesia is used in the Bible, 113 have been translated in English as church. But here's what should blow your mind. The word church, as we think of it, was never actually used. It's a poor translation to what ekklesia actually means. No wonder so many are confused by what this thing we call church really is. Let me explain further. See, it's very difficult to clearly identify when and where the word church, the English word church, popped up. But as far as we can surmise, it seems to begin appearing in translations of the New Testament about 1,000 years after Jesus spoke these words, meaning the word church wasn't used until over 1,000 years later. Prior to that, this word ekklesia was nearly always translated assembly or gathering. Okay, some of you are thinking, enough with these language lessons. What does this mean for me today? It means that if we want to understand what it means to, I'm going to use our language, be the church or do church, we must understand what Jesus and the other writers of the New Testament actually meant by this word, ekklesia. You see, there were other words that Jesus could have used, but he and the writers of the New Testament purposely chose this word, ekklesia. So when Paul writes all of his letters, the ones we read in our English Bible, says to the church of Galatia, or to the church of Ephesus, or to the church of Philippi, he is actually saying to the ekklesia, to the gathering of those who are called out in Galatia, to the gathering of those who are called out in Ephesus, to the gathering of those who are called out in Philippi. It changes your perspective, doesn't it? Now, I'm not suggesting we just throw out the word church, but I am saying we must redefine what it means. We must go back to what Jesus actually said and meant when he said, "On this rock I will build." Not my church. What? What did he say he was going to build? Not a building, not a denomination, not a political party. He said, "On this rock I will build a gathering of people who have been called out." He said he was going to build a movement. Wow. Doesn't that understanding take this old stale word church and add depth and excitement and motivation to it? If you've put your faith in Jesus, you're part of this gathering of people that Jesus has called out. And notice what he follows up with in Matthew 16. He says, and I tell you, not even the gates of Hades will overcome it. Matthew 16, verse 18. Remember the picture. You can see it on the screen. You can almost imagine Jesus at this very moment porting to this large cave in this pagan area where few Jews would ever venture. And he says, "On this rock I will build my ekklesia, my gathering of people who have been called out." And, imagine him pointing, and not even the gates of Hades will be able to stop it. What did he mean by that? I wish I had time to finish this. Don't miss part 2 next week. Do not miss part 2 because it will really solidify the enormity of what Jesus and other writers meant when they used this word, ekklesia.